I think we just jump right into it. I don't think we do any intro, no music, no frou.
Really?
We're just doing it.
Andrew wants to talk about COVID.
So we haven't spoken about it much.
No.
And that's on purpose because there's a lot of people talking about it. But I wanted to have this conversation with you, my wife, because I have noticed, based off the sample size of my friend group, that a lot of couples...
And based off the sample size of you and I.
Yes, true. A lot of couples or even roommates are going through this weird transition phase as the official quarantine is kind of ending and things are opening back up, where one person is a little more comfortable going out back into the world.
You.
Yes. And the other person is still a little hesitant.
Me.
Yeah. I like you right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you not usually?
I do know. You're just cute.
It's a concerning thing to say.
So I just thought that we would kind of talk through this thing and how can we respect each other's preferences and what we're each comfortable
Always do what the wife says.
Can I finish my thought?
Yeah, sorry.
How can I, as your husband, respect what you're comfortable with while at the same time doing things that I'm comfortable with and I'm ready to do? You know what I'm saying? It's an interesting conundrum. And I thought that we would just explore this topic here in case any of you are going through the same thing.
Well, and this is what Andrew and I have talked about, which is really confusing because I feel like the hardest part about the quarantine and the pandemic and everything for me has been the uncertainty. And I say that when I refer to like all of it. I feel like there's so many differing opinions about how extreme and how dangerous and how contagious and who's at risk and who's not at risk and how long is the quarantine going to last? How, can you see your parents who have been quarantined themselves? Can you get it through talking? There's so much uncertainty. And for me, at the beginning of the quarantine, I had friends that I know very well who work in the military and work closely with the government who were warning us about this back in January, saying...
Not that early. Back in like the first couple of days of March.
Okay.
Sorry to shut you down, but
it was in February for sure.
Okay.
Maybe not January. That was an exaggeration. It was definitely in February.
Okay.
But they were warning us of this, and I remember back then thinking, like, there's no way this could be real. But then also being like, babe, maybe we should go stock up on groceries before they shut down. Maybe we should get some face masks, like they're saying, and understandably so, you were always like, no, it's fine. We're fine. Which I have to say, as a wife, is so comforting to have that other person to be like, babe, it's okay. Even if it wasn't, there's still something comforting about it. But I say that because going into quarantine, I hit a low, and we can talk about this, but I almost got depressed because I was so anxious and so nervous about keeping my family safe, keeping Drew safe and myself since I have asthma and you and just everything. I didn't like the uncertainty of all of it drove me crazy. So now that we're transitioning back into quote unquote normal life, I'm so anxious.
And there's been all these fears that have just been pounded into us as a society for the past 8 weeks. You're still affected by those like worst case scenarios. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And I think for any moms out there or anybody, like, it just, the ripple effect of this in my mom heart and mind is like uncontrolled. I'm like, wow. Okay, I need to continue trying to breastfeed her longer than I planned on because I want her to have the antibodies and want her to be protected better. And even though my milk supply is dropping, like, what can I do now to like extend that? And we shouldn't go on vacation and we shouldn't celebrate her 1-year-old birthday party. And it's like all these different, it's just ripple effects. How do you get out over that?
So you and I have had some of the larger conflicts, not in a bad, negative, or aggressive way, of our relationship, though, because the fear that we have been, I'm not saying it's misplaced either. Like, it's a bad disease, clearly, but you're still in the place now as Nashville is in phase 1 of reopening, and there's restaurants that are allowed to open at certain capacities, and like barbershops, massage parlors, gyms. These are all parts of our daily life that we haven't had for the past 8 weeks. And I am expressing, hey, Shawn, I'm going to go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts when I say something
Well,
like that?
to give an example, we went to the lake yesterday and we actually ate at our first restaurant since February.
And what an experience that was.
So we followed, the tape that pointed you in a one-way direction, and we wound around the line and stayed 6 feet apart, got up to the waitress. They took our temperature. She was wearing a mask. They sat us at a table that was at least 6 feet apart from another table. We were the first people to sit down.
They took our temperature with like this little, the gun thermometer where they point at your forehead and it spits out a temperature immediately, which was nuts. It's like, this is a restaurant. It's not a freaking hospital.
But I say all this because we sat down and it was perfectly to the parameters that the government has told us is safe, right? Mm-hmm. And we are the first people to sit down, and we are sitting there for 20 minutes, and it hits like rush hour lunchtime, and more people start to filter in. The tables start to fill up, and I like felt anxiety crushing my soul. I was like, it's time to go. Don't touch anything. Don't talk to anyone.
Especially when you got Drew sitting there just throwing toys left and right all over the place.
Now, like, she would throw a toy on the ground. I'm like, oh, it's a goner. And I kick it into the lake.
Burn it.
Yeah. I just like, how do you balance that?
Well, and this is another interesting thing that we need to keep in mind. People are listening to this all over the country. And in California, they're going to be in quarantine, stay at home
until
much
August.
longer than we are now. So I'm sure we have people listening who maybe some of them are in like Iowa, which I don't think was ever under stay at home.
It was never at stay at home.
And so they're like, oh, wow, Shawn and Andrew are like super uptight and worried about this. But then you have some people in California
who are like, how could they be so lax?
And how are they going out to eat, and like how reckless of them. But it's like what a weird thing to navigate.
And to try, I don't know if we're like getting to a point for you guys. We're just talking around it. To give you an example of how confusing this has been for us as a married couple, I am naturally more anxious. I mean, to begin with.
I wouldn't say always though, babe.
Not always. I don't mean it in a bad way. I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it in a sense of like, I just have a brain and I'm wired in the sense of I run through every hypothetical situation you could possibly imagine. I have thought about someone breaking into our home. I have thought about a robbery. I have thought about attempted kidnap, like all these morbid things.
That's by the way, another side issue that we should talk about where those things are like something that I'm oblivious to.
Yeah.
And me as a protector, having to have learned that for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
But so I just naturally think that way. Add a global pandemic into that, and my brain moves very fast. And with Andrew, you beautifully just don't think that way. You're more optimistic. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful thing. But a lot of our arguments, not in like a bad way, just like difference of opinions as it pertains to the global pandemic and the quarantine, has raised an argument in like a situation that has never come about before. And it wasn't an argument out of, I think you're wrong and I think you're right. Mm-hmm. It was an argument out of fear. Because I couldn't argue to Andrew, I think you're wrong, because I don't know. I would argue with you out of fear of like, but what if something bad happens? What if I go to the grocery store or you go to the grocery store and I get COVID-19 and I die? Like,
right. For you, it was an issue of, hey, if Andrew's going to the gym, you really viewed that to some extent as me putting our family at risk. 'Cause
yeah, I did.
You said multiple times, like, what if you get it there at the gym and then Drew gets it and then I get it and we don't know until 2 weeks in and it's too late. So like it was this like you and your maternal instincts saying, why would you even take that risk at all?
Well, and it was also a fear of.
It is. We shouldn't use past.
No,
this
it
is
is
still something. That
it's also a fear of like natural, just like human emotion of what if she gets sick? What if you went to the gym? Would I blame you? Not that you should ever place blame, but it's like that fear and that argument that we get, those arguments that we get in. I'm trying to protect all of us from any of those what if situations,
right.
Which I also believe is a terrible way to live. You should not live in a what if life because you'll never live. You'll never be able to breathe and just enjoy anything. So like, again, I don't think there's a moral to this for you guys, but it's just.
Well, I wanted to share how we've kind of navigated this because we have talked about like a lag period of, hey, the law says restaurants can open up May 1st, but what if we're like 4 weeks behind that? And then are you comfortable with that? But I should say my perspective even and my, I wouldn't say like lackadaisical approach to this or like careless, but it's definitely less anxious than your perspective is. Changed yesterday when my brother shared that he has coronavirus. And
we were supposed to.
Please pray for him. But
it changed because immediately we had plans for Memorial Weekend. Again, we're in the phase of coming out of this within Nashville. We are going to spend Memorial Weekend with our family who has been quarantined for the past 3 months, but found out yesterday that one of your brothers has it, and we're like, absolutely not.
Right. Which I think that's a good risk aversion on our part.
I think, yeah.
Because
I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry. I think that's a beautiful perspective for you to have.
Yeah. Is there something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? You can start communicating with a professional counselor in under 24 hours using BetterHelp.
One of Andrew and I's favorite things we have ever done, most meaningful, life-changing things we've ever done, is go to therapy. We did premarital counseling, and I'm a huge, huge advocate for therapy, especially something like this. BetterHelp. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's literally professional counseling done securely online.
So BetterHelp is available for clients worldwide, and they will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapists. They have experts with a broad range of expertise and is also available for individuals and couples. So if you want to improve your own life or you want to start relationship counseling, BetterHelp is a great choice.
Something I love about BetterHelp is it's actually more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available.
And BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today.
So if you want to try it out, visit betterhelp.com/eastfam. That's betterhelp.com/eastfam. And join the over 500,000 people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional.
And couple things, listeners, get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/eastfam. So let's clean up our organizational thoughts here just a little bit and just go back to what is the best way that I can respect you. Say, hey, I want to go out to lunch or dinner with a friend at a restaurant that's open. What are the thoughts that go through your mind?
So the thoughts that go through my mind are, point blank, I'm not comfortable with that yet. I'm not comfortable going into a public setting, which might seem silly because you're probably putting yourself just as at risk as you would going to the grocery store.
Right, which is my argument.
But
go ahead.
I do think we've been doing a really good job, and you've been doing a really good job at compromising, because when the phase 1 did start and restaurants started opening and they're at half capacity and they're being cleaned and sanitized, you're like, babe, for date night this week, let's go to Bar Taco. And I was like, I don't really feel comfortable. And then I was like, what if we had a couple friends over, like a couple? And we did a date night where we grilled out, which is still within the phase 1. And I think it's just this open conversation of compromise. What are you comfortable with? How are we going to ease into it? How are we going to start gaining trust again? And it worked. But again, that couple has been quarantined for 3 months. They're healthy. They didn't touch anything. They sanitize when they walk in the door.
On the strategy of us lagging behind what the law allows for, it's an interesting thing to wrap your mind around, because like, so say May 1st is when Nashville allows restaurants to open back up.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, okay, well, let's just set a 4-week window where, on June 1st is when we'll go eat. That's 4 weeks after May 1st. Like, we'll go eat at restaurants a month after that. It's like this arbitrary, it's not, there's no logic behind that necessarily, right? But
no, it's 100% nonsensical.
But it's me trying to come up with a compromise and give you room to like digest all of the things that have happened the past 8 weeks.
Absolutely.
Which I don't know what is the washout period going to be for like the terror of shaking someone's hand or bumping, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
like,
and I think that right there is how you sum up how you support your significant other, how you support your parents, your friends. You go about following the guidelines 100%. That's what I believe. You do everything that they're recommending. Wash your hands, wear your face mask, do everything.
Yes.
But you support each other by, okay, you don't feel comfortable. Let's set a timer. Is it 4 months? Is it 4 weeks? Is it 4 days? When we hit that timer, let's go to the grocery store. Let's go to the restaurant. Let's do something outside of your comfort zone that this pandemic took away from you. Because I truly believe we have all endured a trauma, like the entire world, that has taken trust away from us. And we're going to have to push one another and hold hand, like figuratively speaking, hold each other's hand to like ease our trust back into the world, because we're all scared.
Holding hands figuratively.
Yes.
That's funny.
Yes.
I do think that, as cliche as it sounds, as in all things relationships, whether it's romantic or not, the communication is key. And we value being super honest, and that's what I'm very thankful for on your end, is you expressing, since you are the person who's more reserved, you expressing those reservations, because it would be a way worse situation if I was going out to lunch every day with new friends and you were living in this, you were like terrified of me because you thought I was just this germ infested being now. So I think that is one takeaway that's valuable, is just however you're feeling, whether you're more comfortable like I am or more reserved like Shawn, just communicate that and make sure your partner knows the stance, because it's after you are open and honest, that's the only way that the other person can learn the boundaries that you're comfortable with and navigate around those. You know what I'm saying? But then the second part of that is, after you understand where your partner is coming from, it is such a core issue, health and death. And it's like this ingrained, embedded fear that affects humans in a different way than like anything else, really. That once you know what your partner's comfortable or not comfortable with, respect that and figure out a way that you can compromise, communicate away. So for Shawn and I, it is this lag time. It's figuring out ways to be creative while still in some ways getting that social itch scratched that, has been lingering for the past 8 weeks. And I feel like we're all ready for that, but in a way that's not like, hey, let's have a quarantine ended party and we're inviting 100 of our closest friends. Like that's clearly would be blatantly disrespecting you. So those are two things that I've learned personally. I don't know if am I overlooking anything there?
No, I think communication. I think acknowledging. I was talking to Jana Kramer the other day about this, just because she has a lot of the same feelings I do, just as a mom, of the anxiety that has come with everything going on. And we were just saying that you have to acknowledge the fact, even if you're at home, even if you're unaffected, you know, health-wise by the pandemic, you're still watching the news.
Right.
You're still mentally affected by the traumatic pandemic that is happening. And even if you think you're unaffected, you are affected subconsciously. Just, you're a little more cautious. You're a little more fearful. And I think if you're just aware of that and you work on it, we can kind of get through the transition a little bit better. And, you know, I mean, God forbid another wave doesn't come, you know, whatever. But hopefully just through all of this, you can find an outlet to not be so fearful.
Yeah. There's been a lot of sacrifices made on a lot of people's parts. And I think it would be, you know, unfair to say that quarantine has been absolutely brutal on us. I think in all honesty, we've had it pretty easy, and we're fortunate for that. There's a lot of people that have had it worse than us. My brother catching the virus is a humbling experience. And I mean, even the way I talk about it, you can kind of probably get the sense that I probably don't view the pandemic as seriously as maybe I should. 'Cause in my mind, it's like, oh, he has it, but he'll recover from it and it'll be fine. Right. That's just my automatic assumption. But I'm more and more understanding that not everybody has that. I mean, the other interesting thing about this is how aggressive people. We have a neighbor who got yelled at a nail salon the other day because whatever, she wasn't wearing gloves or something, and it's like people are ferociously, they're
fearful.
nervous. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's also been a big fear of ours as well, is, you know, disease aside or virus aside, how are people going to react out of fear? Are people going to act irrationally? And, you know, people do dumb things when they're afraid.
Yeah.
And if we don't control the fear, I mean, it makes it worse. And yeah.
So I guess takeaways, if there are any, would be as you move forward making decisions, one, just keep in mind that we're big fans of following the law. So that is the foundation.
Yeah.
And then I would say any other restrictions above that are restrictions that you and your partner, you and your roommate, whoever you're doing this quarantine with, have come up together and respects both parties. So whether that's me having to take a shower when I get back home, or having to Kleenex, what do you call it? Sanitize like handles
Kleenex.
And steering wheels and everything.
Yes.
After I go out, like I wouldn't do that if it wasn't for your asking me to. So, that would be the second level of that. And then I think, you know, we're all trying to figure this out as we go along. So, would love to hear how you are approaching this, what struggles you have had in thinking about moving back into the real world, the quote unquote normal world, the new normal as we know it. And that's the conversation we wanted to share today. Sorry we had to be a downer and contribute to the coronavirus conversation. We tried not to, but I felt like it was important enough to kind of do this live. So thank you.
Yeah.
Shawn. And if you guys would keep my brother in your thoughts and prayers, that'd be appreciated. But that's all we got.
That is. Let us know your thoughts, and we will see you next week.
It's the East Fam out.